Welcome to Carolina One Video Training Series. In today's session, we will be looking at sections 9 through 12 of the Agreement to Buy and Sell Residential Real Estate. Section 9 of our South Carolina Residential Agreement just further clarifies some of the things associated with the home inspection. And basically what it says here is the buyer and licensed and insured inspectors can reasonably perform any ultimately non-destructive examination. So in other words, it just gives the buyer as well as any licensed and bonded home inspectors the right and the opportunity to conduct a home inspection. Obviously a non-destructive examination, but they have the right to go through and do that particular inspection. Buyers and persons they choose may make reasonable visual observations of the property. And then down below it stipulates that the sellers will make the property accessible for inspection and not unreasonably withhold access. And then the seller agrees to keep all utilities operational through closing. This is obviously important when you're working with your seller and you're presenting an offer. You want to encourage them to keep the utilities on to help facilitate the process. Should the utilities be turned off and they need to be reconnected or turned back on, this section here, the seller grants the buyer permission to do so, to pay for the utilities and hire professionals to connect them and so forth. Of course, we never recommend that you as the real estate agent or your buyer take it into their own hands to turn on the water or turn on the electrical panel box. It's always best to have those folks who are licensed, bonded, do that for a living, to come out and take care of that for you. Again, the buyer agrees to hold the harmless, the seller and agents, etc., from anything that may happen during the home inspection. That's why we always recommend hiring home inspectors who carry their insurance as well. Section number 10 deals with appraised value. This one's pretty simple. It just simply says either the property is contingent upon meeting the lender's appraisal or it's not contingent. So most cases the property is going to be contingent upon appraisal. If by chance the property comes in less than the appraised value comes in less than the contract price, this particular paragraph tells you how that can be handled. And basically the seller delivers notice to the buyer within 5 business days or closing, and then they either can amend to reduce the purchase price to the appraised value. If the seller does that, then they're going to move forward. If the seller chooses not to reduce the purchase price to the appraised value, this sentence here says that the buyer can proceed to closing, obviously making up the difference with cash, or they can terminate the contract by delivering notice of termination to the seller and get their earnest money back. So appraised values covered in that paragraph. Paragraph number 11 deals with our wood infestation report, or our CL 100. If the property to be sold has been previously occupied, what that means is if it is not a new home community, then the CL 100 will be in play. And again, the contract's contingent upon the buyer and seller having the property inspected at their expense by a pest control operator selected by the buyer or seller. So 2 check boxes. The first check box is basically who's going to pay for the inspection, the CL 100 inspection. The second check box is who is going to be responsible for choosing who that inspector will be. The CL 100 needs to be within a time frame. Note, dated no earlier than 30 calendar days and no later than, and I would write in there 15 calendar days. Now notice the subtle change in the wording. All throughout our contract we've seen the phrase business days. Now we switch to calendar days, which would include weekends, time, all the different time periods, etc. come into play. Bottom line is the CL 100 is only good for 30 calendar days. If you're outside 30 calendar days, you will be required to get an updated CL 100. And using 15 days in the blank, just make sure that there's a sufficient amount of time to address issues should there be any. The paragraph below deals with what happens if there is a problem with the CL 100 inspection, and basically the seller has the right to repair and provide a clear CL 100. If the seller chooses not to make those repairs, then the buyer can either accept the property as it is, negotiate with the seller for payment of the repairs and treatment, or again, notice here in section number 3, the buyer can terminate the contract and receive their earnest money. So again, understanding that the seller has the right to remedy any issues. Should the seller choose not to, then there are some things that the buyer can do as well. Section number 12 deals with survey, title exam, and insurance, and you might want to read through this paragraph, but basically we encourage that the buyer have the property surveyed, they get the title examined, and they also provide for themselves the appropriate amount of insurance, not just in homeowners insurance, but also title insurance, that they get that taken care of at closing. Again, flood insurance is assigned to the buyer with permission of a carrier, so it may or may not be able to be carried over from one seller to a new homeowner. And notice this: the buyers are solely responsible to investigate price and the requirements of insurance for the property prior to signing the contract. Again, this is something that's not always feasible, and so you may choose to do this during the due diligence time period, or you may choose to have a separate insurance addendum that gives your buyer some time to be able to get insurance quotes and be satisfied with the premiums as like a contingency for them moving forward in the purchase. Okay, that covers sections 9 through 12, and we'll pick up the other sections in our next webinar.